Go, Sean. Nobody's coming in, so you got to do the intro.
I hope we keep that in the edit.
But
Hey, everybody, welcome to Punch Kick Joke Chat. My name is Sean Benson. I'm one of your hosts. This is one of our short episodes, which we love, and we love that you're here watching it. But it's special for two reasons. A lot of our shorts don't get all of us here. That's actually why we built them that way. We couldn't always make it with every guest. And so it's really great that we've got everyone here. But we also have one of our show members, one of our PKCC members, Robert, here with us. And we're going to talk about him in a sec. First, I just want to say that it's always an immense pleasure. This isn't going to air by the time this happens, but next weekend I'll be with Sensei Suino, Sensei Dauphin, Hanshi Legacy at our Iaido camp. And it's just one of so many events that we do together, sometimes in-house with this group, sometimes through things like Capital Conquest, or, Levy Quebec and all that kind of thing, where we just meet other martial artists in the community. And that's so much the thrust of this show. So we're so happy you're here with us. And I'm so happy to train with my senseis. And I just want to say about Robert Chlumsky, I talk a lot about how I've had a solo journey more than most in karate, in the sense that I moved away from my senseis. So I spent most of my time coming up through the ranks, training on my own until I built my own club. And saying I don't have trudging partners would be totally inaccurate. Every single time I get to the dojo, and now including BJJ, I get to look across the room at Robert Chlumsky and be challenged every single time by the excellence of his kata, his fighting, the tenacity of his rolling. And so I just want to say that I absolutely do have a trudging partner, and he's on this call, Robert. I'll throw it to you, Sensei Suino.
well, what we're going to do today is a little bit of an unusual format. We are going to ask a question, go around the horn on that question, and then when we have an opportunity, we're just going to say a word or two about Robert to make sure that our friends and studio audience know who he is. Are we ready to rock that, or do we have something we want to do before we get to that stage?
I don't know. Do we want to all just do the introduction of Robert first, so people, and then go into the questions?
I'm all good with that.
Do that.
Here's what I know about Robert. I've known him since he was really, really small. He's been to a number of seminars with me, including Iaido and many others. And if you think that a man who is as quiet as he is, and so willing to not stand in the shadows, but just to let others speak, he speaks with his, it sounds like a line from a movie. He speaks with his arms and legs. When you see Robert fighting in karate, you know where the last couple of decades has gone. The guy's a badass. He is I call him a sniper. He's an absolute badass on the floor in karate. And I think we've rolled a couple of times at seminars or whatnot. I don't know, but I suspect there will come a day when he's exactly the same thing on the mats for BJJ. So Robert, I'm so glad you're on the call with us today, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts.
Thanks, Sensei.
Right on. Let's go to you, Hanshi Legacy.
But now I've known this guy since he was almost out of diapers. And he's yeah, there he is, getting graded. He's a great martial artist, extremely fast, a great family man. I mean, I can't think of anything negative to say about him. So everything that you possibly can think of, what you want to be like, he has all those characteristics. I'm really happy to say that he decided to join Randy's club, which connects him to me and our dojos.
Thanks, Hanshi. Sensei Dauphin?
Well, interestingly, Sensei Legacy and I met Robert on the same day. And Robert was 5 years old, and his parents lied to us about him joining Legacy Shorin. They said he was 6 going to be 7, and he was 5 going to be 6. And then he ratted them out one night in class inadvertently. But things worked out. This could be the Robert Chlumsky show if you left me to just talk about this. He is 100% like a family member to me. He is, I've known him longer than I've known my kids, right? And he was 5 when I met him. So it's hard for me not to think of him as one of my children. I'm really proud of the man that he's turned out to be. I'm proud of the martial artist that he is. I'm very proud of the martial artist that he is. He's a leader in this dojo, and he's a leader outside of this dojo in the martial arts community. All I can say is, when my kids see him, when Sammy or Sydney or Benny or Cheyenne or Steven see him, they just walk up to him, hug him. He's like another sibling to them as well. And I agree with everything that everybody said. His martial arts skills are unbelievable. He's very lucky that he has the brain that he has and the body that he has. He's lucky he picked his parents the way he did, because he wanted, you know, the term fuck around and find out. If you just think he's some quiet guy and you're gonna fuck around with him, you're gonna find out. You're gonna find out in a hurry. And I'll tell you, a couple of guys in the BJJ gym, when I've gone in the change room when he's not there, they've said, Robert's your student. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, I asked him to throw a kick at me. I said, how'd that fucking work out? And they're like, the next thing I just felt some wind and then his foot was back down on the ground again. Right? So yeah, I love this guy and I'm proud of all the stuff we've done together and all the stuff we're going to do together. I'm really proud he's part of Legacy Shore. Just legit human being, legit martial artist. Yeah. Thanks for coming on today, Robert.
Yeah, thanks everyone. That's feels a bit overwhelming, but yeah, appreciate all that.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. So today, for those of you watching, we're doing a rip around the horn short. We've all got a question. Everybody's going to answer it, and then we're going to say goodbye. And I'm super excited for this format. I can see this becoming a thing. So I don't think there's any reason we don't start with Hanshi Legacy and go down the rank that way. And we'll all answer your question, Hanshi, and then you can answer it at the end.
In general, looking at it was hard because we always have these talks by ourselves, but in general, in martial arts, it seems to me like there's a lull between a fourth dan and an eighth dan, and by that I mean I've held a couple of things for fourth dans to an eighth dan, so that you can get more info, look at a different look at martial arts. But say between anybody wearing a red and white belt, are they letting the martial arts down by way of thinking that they're already at the top and that they don't need to go and learn stuff? Because I go to Capital Conquest, I go to all sorts of different promotions to learn, and you never see, not ever, but you mostly do not see red and white belts participating, I'm thinking, well, what do they think? They know everything already? And I blame that on a little bit on, if you belong to a karate style, think about it. You become a fourth, your last cut as you learn are fourth dans. And that's it, your program's over. Sure, people will say, well, you mix them and you cross them and you do this and you do that. There's a lot more knowledge out there that I've learned from Anthony Sandoval, my sensei, that people are not going out after. They're just satisfied with being a red and white belt. So what do you think? Are they letting martial arts down at this time by not making themselves better and actually making themselves red belts? They're just floating around.
You decide who answers in what order, Hanshi.
I'll give okay, we'll start with you, just because you don't normally get to go first. You go first.
Oh,
Sorry.
me? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Great. I actually have some real specific thoughts about this. You know, you say it whenever you give anyone a belt, Hanshi. I reserve the right to remove your belt and your rank if you cease to grow in this martial art. And I don't think enough people stall out or have the rank removed when they cease to grow in the martial art. And I do think that up to a third dan in our style, other styles will be different. I'm sure there's many styles where for a fifth dan you need to learn katas, but in ours, that's up to a third dan. I think that some people in all styles grade as a function of just being around in the river, but they aren't necessarily growing in the art. And I think that, you know, there's too many belts for how much a classical style asks program-wise, right? We know Matsumura knew less kata than we know, but who would argue that today he'd be a 10th Dan, so he would have had to go grow beyond his style. And so at that point, the question becomes, what does that growth look like? Because effectively you're breaking the style to do that. And you can see in our club how people will go and become a master in Iaido, or will go and find a grappling art, or will go and become really excellent at Kabuto. So I don't think necessarily anybody needs more program, but I do think they need to add back into the thing once they're approaching what's called a master's rank. And so for me, that 4th to 8th Dan should never be guaranteed. No belt should be guaranteed. Somebody getting a purple belt who sticks around and is decent, nobody's going to argue too much. But a 4th Dan, that's a pretty hallowed rank. And so I think that in any style, I know in jiu-jitsu, for example, it's just your time in, assuming you're training. You don't have to show anything extraordinary or new. It's just literally, hey, you've put in your 4 years and you're still training. Here's your stripe on your belt for your 4th Dan. Whether that's good or bad, that's just how it's done. In our system, it's a little more unclear what that would look like, although that would be a time minimum. In any case, I think the idea that people let it down is absolutely true in the sense that they might claim a knowledge and a responsibility and a rank that they no longer honor. But I'm not really sure that much specific would need to be done differently, other than what does giving back for them look like? And if you even think about Robert on this show, since it's the Robert show today, he does so much for PKCC, but what he does looks different than what we do because his is over here and ours is here. He would achieve the same rank as us on this show. And that for me, once you're getting to a 4th, 5th, and beyond, it might not be as clear. And I'm guessing because I'm only at a 5th, but it would take on a different character for each person. But most people don't deserve those ranks.
Okay, Nick. See if you can make sense of that.
Interesting. So I think the core of your question was, are people who get to those higher ranks, let's say 4th Dan and above, letting the martial arts down by not continuing to learn and give back? Is that basically?
They're not continuing to learn.
Mm.
There is so much more. And you don't have to go to something else, another art, to fill, your knowledge bucket, so to speak. You can still do it within, because it's a style, right? There are weapons connected to it, just like Matsumura and Yanamari Chiru.
Mm.
And there is grappling and Shorin-ryu, even though learning some outside help, influence to that is fine. But I'm just saying, right now, we're how many seminars have you had where it's been loaded up with red and white belts? Like, where do they go to learn?
Mm. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So I think any of us is letting ourselves down as much as the martial art by not continuing to learn and train the best we can. Having said that, there's lots of different paths. So if someone hits Godan and, well, as I talk about it, I think about it a little differently. Someone hits Godan and all they do is teach, then they probably should be coming out and trying to get different influences, right? Trying to stay fresh, trying to learn new things. I would say yes. At the end of the day, though, we talk about this. If 100 people started your dojo, one of them is going to make black belt, right? And 1 out of 10 of them is going to make Nidan or Sandan. There's this pyramid, and those people that make Shodan and then later Nidan and Sandan, they're a rare breed. And maybe if you cut that pyramid off again and you have even a smaller part of the pyramid, those people that make Yondan, Godan, and above, and keep training and are vibrant and continue to help support the martial arts, that's a rare breed too. Yeah, they're letting the martial arts in themselves down. That tells you something, doesn't it? It's like Darwin at work. It tells you who makes the cut. You know, I mean, like I say, everybody's path is different. I'm sure God loves them just as much as everybody else. But if you're asking about who's great, right? Who are the leaders? Who are the vibrant people at that stage? It's the people that are training, learning, whether it's in their martial art or others. That's what I got.
Randy.
You and I have talked about this a lot. I have some personal thoughts about it that I'm not probably going to share on the show. One thing you had said was about higher rank, and I'd like to just for just a minute unpack rank and learning, those two things, because if you're watching this, any idol, I don't care who grades me ever again outside of Suino Sensei, and in karate, I don't care who ever grades me ever again outside of Sensei Legacy. So for me, it's more about the knowledge and what I want to, two things, how I want to build myself, and then what I want to pass forward to other people and make sure that they have the same opportunities that I had. I 100% think that there's a high percentage of people who train to a certain point and then sort of relax about it. And they just feel like they've arrived. And listen, if you're a Shotokan practitioner and all you want to do is Shotokan for your whole life, that's okay. Like, I don't have any criticism of that. And there's legitimate 10th dans in Shotokan that they've devoted their entire life to that. And they didn't learn anything new necessarily, maybe incremental in their own art. But they didn't go outside and do something different. It won't surprise you, Sensei Legacy, that as a martial artist, I value two things highly: classical martial arts, and I'd like to talk about that in relation to this question, classical martial arts, and then me as a martial artist, being able to vend myself at different ranges and be functional in different ways in combat, like, just to be quite blunt about it, in combat. So that involves being able to stand up, kick and punch, which my belief is that's where it starts. That's where you have to be, or you put yourself in a deficit. If you let people get past that, I think you're functionally in a deficit. Then I think specifically White Crane, or an art like White Crane, is super, super important for you to know how to, on your feet, clinch, find vulnerable places to grab, strike. And then I also do think that you need to be able to take somebody down. And if you find yourself on the ground, you have to be able to break an arm, choke somebody unconscious, or at the very least be good enough to get back up onto your feet. I don't see, if that's your goal and all you're doing is your one art, then you're lying to yourself. So you should be doing other things. When I'm talking about the classical side of things, I 100% think that not enough attention today is being given by higher ranking people to different arts that are very valuable, that need to be passed forward, that can't just die out. It's very, very important to me that Legacy Shorin-ryu carries on. It's very, very important to me that Yamaguchi Sensei's Iaido gets passed forward, which is why we do so much work on these things. And I'm going to throw out, I am very, very passionate about White Crane. I think it is an amazing martial art. And I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't take some time to check that one out. Because I think if you do a striking art or a grappling art, it's going to bridge between the two, and you're going to find a lot of benefit in that. Personally, that's what I think. But then the last thing I'll say is, I'm sure as people get higher ranking, they get a little more picky and choosy about who they want to learn from. Like, I know I do, right? Like, I'm not going to I don't care if I'm happy for you if you're a 4th dan, 5th dan, 6th dan, 7th dan, 8th dan, 9th dan, 10th dan, but your rank doesn't automatically mean I'm going to want to go and learn from you and what you have to teach, right? Like, I don't put those two things together. But I do love, when you said that, Sensei Legacy, I thought about Hanshi Legacy that we had on the other day, who's like been in martial arts for 68 years and is like, I'm never satisfied. I still want to learn more stuff. So he clearly is not one of the people that we're talking about. And he said to you, I want to get at your mat on Capital Conquest and learn about White Crane. So there's one high-ranking guy out there who's still learning.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what I got for you today, Sensei. And you know my other thoughts on it. You and I have talked about them for thousands of hours. So,
Well, Robert,
Yeah, I mean, so for myself, I would say at the cusp of that fourth dan, but as in just at a fourth dan, so can't comment too much. But I do think um, I don't know that I would say they're letting martial arts down. I think they're at least not driving it forward. I think there's still kind of a function for people that slow down around fourth dan and don't necessarily progress, where they can still teach people the dojo and kind of move things along. And for some people, because of health issues or something like that, that there may be good reasons why that's the case, but they're, I would say, not the people driving martial arts forward and really making an impact at a larger scale that way. Since you talked about the vibrant people that are kind of moving it forward. So maybe not everybody's in that camp, but I don't know that it's to the degree of letting martial arts down. I think that, as you said, there's kind of that schism at fourth dan where some people either realize, okay, crap, I'm out of material. Where do I dive in deeper, whether that's within your own style or pick up a new art or something like that. And I think there is kind of that schism where some people take that plunge and go into those uncomfortable places, whether it's with a new art or just, diving deeper into their bunkai, let's say, and kind of, going where just going where they're uncomfortable and being okay with that. And there's some people that decide they don't want to feel that discomfort. They don't want to necessarily put themselves in a situation where someone might see that they can be beat by someone else or no less than someone else of a similar rank, and so they don't put themselves there. And I think that's kind of the deciding factor once you get to fourth dan and beyond.
Robert fucking Chlumsky, everybody. You see why we keep him off camera? He's gonna put us out of work. Hanshi, what do you think?
Well, I guess I am looking in somebody who has to master a style and pass it on to other persons. Like sort of Randy says, like we all age, right? And we all can't go to the world championships and fight anymore. So there has to be stuff for the aging samurai as well, or the aging warrior as well, right? And a lot of those things, the martial arts are not going to disclose to you before you reach a fourth dan. If you're just satisfied at learning what you know up to a fourth dan, that's all you will be able to teach someone else. Up to a fourth dan, that will be it. What about the fifth and sixth dans? What will they learn? Or the eighth, seventh, and eighth dans? Well, the ninth and 10th dans are really just appointments. You're not, at that time, you're putting all that stuff together and just maturing, right? So that's a bit what I'm worried about. How if a fourth dan and an eighth dan are the same, what leadership is one giving the other? They're just all in the same boat, and there shouldn't be. There should be some type of moving forward, and especially if you're being a classical martial artist, have to be some things that are undisclosed to you just before dan. There's got to be more intent, more work, more learning to be able to, even if it are the same things, but in a different light, right? So I learned that a little bit from learning the white crane. When I became a fourth dan, I just stood up and looked around, and I just saw the same guys just being the same fighters and the same kata guys winning tournaments, but not really gaining more or furthering the style, so to speak. So I'm wondering, well, who does that? Fourth, there's nothing beyond fourth dan. Why are there grades? And who's going to teach them, and what are they going to teach them? So, for instance, like you said, yes, it's good to go out and learn EI. I do EI. I respect EI. We have a weapons style under our roof, but that person, where do those guys who learn everything go to? They're going to go to a guy who only goes up to fourth dan and doesn't learn anymore, or are you going to go to a guy who's been doing that all his life? And you're going to get a doctor to operate on your child. You're going to get a guy who's, or a guy who is more mature in the same thing. So maybe it's just a matter of maturity, but I always think there's something more to learn. And I found it out when I was fourth down when I ran into Anthony Sandoval, and so is mostly everyone on this show. We've all seen what this guy can do and what he's taught us. And even, for instance, we didn't even know, we couldn't even decipher some of the bunkai in our karate. We had to go into white crane to learn the answers. And it's very clearly in there. So there must be something in between there, or something that brings you and your art a bit further.
Thanks, Hanshi. Sensei Suino, what do you got for us? What's your question for Around the Horn? Short.
Well, I have it. Let's rock and roll. This will be simpler, I think.
Who are you talking to?
Well, talking to everybody, we're about to find out. What do you consider the most advanced or difficult technique in your martial art, and how did you master it? Randy?
Well, I'm just going to speak to striking right now. Sensei Suino. I mean, my mind right away in Iaido, when you're asking the question, Ukigumo for me is like a very, very challenging technique, just the stance and the way you have to move yourself. And I think I can do it fairly. It's a Tata-Hiza form you only do on one side of your body, right? Like it's got that reverse side of it. But I did it by doing it extra times, right? Like every time I started an Iaido workout, I would just start when I was by myself. I'd do that one 5 or 10 times, and then I go in to my workout, and that's how I did it. In the striking realm, Sensei Legacy, I'm not bragging, but he's seen me in tournaments pull off some pretty good kicks, like hit people with reverse inside crescent kicks. And, so how did I don't know if I mastered it. I'm just going to say I'm really good at it. I'm really good at those types of techniques. So I think it's number one. I did them statically a lot, like just so your body gets used to the mechanics of the movement, and then being able to pull it off in a fight means you have to actually take a chance to step forward and do it. And I'll divulge a little bit of a secret to people. When I'm going to try those types of techniques, it's usually when I'm dominating you in the match. So, I've already gotten up by 3 or 4 points in a 5-point match, let's say. And now it's the time to go for style points, so to speak, right? Like, and you go for those style points, and then eventually they start to pay off. And I guess the other thing I would say about it is another little trick for people. When you're trying to pull them off in fighting, you need to have a way to set them up multiple ways, right? So convince them it's going to be a back fist, but it's really going to be a jump spinning back kick, right? And the best way to do that is to make sure you hit them with the damn back fist before you try and do the jump spinning back kick. That's my answer to you. And I saw Sensei laughing because I just want to say he taught me all of that stuff, right? Like I'm ripping him off like unabashedly. So.
All right, well, in that case, we're going to him yet. Hanshi, what do you consider the most difficult technique in your art, and how did you master? Listen, when I use the word master, I'm not using it like,
Yeah.
Your Yoda. It's just, how'd you get to where you got on the technique?
And the reason I was laughing was because it's partially what I was writing down.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's observation. Because it's like Randy at the beginning. Again, it's just sort of a personal thing, but when I trained him, I didn't always give him the answer. For instance, a foot sweep. He'd probably tell you every hole in the ceiling of my dojo at that time. But some things I would tell him because we needed to move on to a certain place quickly. But once we were fighting all the time, some of the hard things, some of the things that you had to observe, I would just keep doing it to him, and then hopefully that he was intelligent enough to pick things up. So I would say observation, seeing how others did it and seeing how others reacted to it. Um, or when they attack, whether I should be in that stance, whether I should be going in, going off to the side, how I should elude it. If I was attacking a person and they were countering me, whether I would go in and instead of stepping back, I would just bump them and move off to the side. So I think martial arts are visual arts. They're hands-on arts. I think that the greatest thing you can do is observe, spend the time to see how different body types did it and different minds, what they do in that certain condition. Because I didn't always have the best answer. I actually learned a lot of things from other people. Billy Hines.
Observation. Love it. Love it. Robert, what's the most difficult technique for you in your art, and what have you done to master it, to get to the level of mastery that you have?
Anyone he tries to use against me is the most difficult technique in his art. So
Well, I was gonna say I can start to sympathize with all of you for having to answer after your sensei is on the call because it's difficult to do.
Right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know if it's the most difficult, but at least as a teacher, one that I think students struggle with the most, I would say, is a sidekick, just because it's kind of unnatural and difficult, and there's some steps to break down that students really struggle with. And just talk about that one for a second. I would say 3 things I did to get good at it. Not counting starting young and just having that time, but aside from that, breaking it down and working on the static exercises to kind of build up those little muscles you need to really execute that kick well. You know, Sensei Dauphin also has this thing where usually every September we get new students in and we spend basically the whole month reviewing basics, really breaking everything down. It doesn't matter if you're white belt, purple belt, black belt, everyone does sort of the same breakdown of basics. And that actually helps a lot. And even if you think you understand the kick, there's always something that comes up and something that you refresh, and that helps just to revisit the basics even when you think you know them. There's always some tidbit you kind of walk away with. And last thing I would say, at least for me, is teaching students has really helped with that, to help master that technique where, you know, you think you understand it, then you have to teach it to someone, you realize, crap, I actually don't know the answer to that. Let me go back and find out and relearn it myself. And so that's, yeah, those are the main things I would say to really master that technique, but I think that applies outside to martial arts in general too.
Love it. Love it. Sean Benson, what's the most difficult technique in your martial art, and what have you done to get the level of mastery that you have?
Thanks, Sensei. I love this question. I have 2 answers. One is when I was more of a beginner, and one is for now. My inside middle block won't surprise Sensei Dauphin. It took me, like, coming from a ballet background, the kicks and all the other stuff felt pretty simple. It doesn't mean I was doing it brilliantly or with power, but my inside middle block, I never really understood where it came from, how to generate the power I felt it needed, how to use it effectively. And honestly, it's what Sensei Dauphin said, static practice, like over and over and over, and trusting my teacher who said that sucks. If you don't have a teacher who tells you stuff sucks, every once in a while, get a new teacher. If that's all they tell you, get a new teacher. But it's a sweet middle to go, I'm gonna go practice. But I will say this, and you're gonna love this, Sensei Suino, pressure testing. Because it was actually through what Hanshi Legacy said, observation, watching the way Sensei Dauphin would block. And I'm like, oh, that's a practical inside middle block. I mean, if I think about sparring, that is probably the move I use the most. But what's interesting for me is if my hand's here, like in Uchiuke, that's probably not going to be my blocking hand if something's coming here. It's that. So now I'm understanding an upstream version of the block within the technique from sparring and pressure testing. And then if I'm trying to do anything with that, that's probably another thing happening. Get to the outside, hit the elbow, whatever, however we want to think about it. So now I'm deepening the understanding of what the thing is and also what muscle groups might need to be involved. So maybe it doesn't need to be as fast, or maybe if it's that fast, it doesn't need the same power. So pressure testing and static practice for sure. I'll say right now, my toughest technique is my sidekick, which has actually been my bread and butter for like 30 years. But as I approach 50, my hips have had some injuries, my knees have had some injuries, my ability to torque with that relaxed ease on my supporting leg isn't what it used to be. And so now I'm going to Robert Chlumsky's answer, which is I need to practice my sidekick like I would teach a white belt. I need to slowly lift, pivot, fire out, understand it's not going to be as high as I remember it being when I'm dreaming at night, so that it can one day be there again. But I have to acknowledge who I am today with the couple injuries I've had over the last 5 years, instead of pretending and then just throwing a modified shitty kick. So currently my mastery is by going back to the beginning with a technique that honestly was probably one of my best for a long time.
What do you think, Sensei Suino? What's yours?
Well, I'm involved in another number of different martial arts, and plenty of people have talked about striking and Iaido. I'll talk about judo. One of the most difficult techniques in Nage no kata, which is forms of throwing, is uchimata, the inside thigh throw. Everybody just struggles like hell with it, and the truth is, it's very difficult to apply in sparring too. I am far from mastering it. There was a time when I was pretty good at it, and basically I just synthesized all your answers. I found some people that were really good at it, and I watched them a lot. I practiced a lot, static, a lot. But then ultimately what's come out of that is I've developed this step-by-step way of studying it and teaching it that's really effective, right? Because I had to go through all those steps and come to dead ends and go, well, I'm trying this, it's not making me better. I'm trying this, it's not making me better. So I found an approach that helps people learn to do that a lot faster than I learned it. And when I'm building my, 63-year-old body into an Uchimata again, a la Sean Benson's comment, I have to address that, right? I have to address the fundamentals and make sure I have them and do them in a way that I can do them now. So, yeah, everything everybody said, mix it all up, put it in a big bag, and pop it out for judo. Same thing.
That's it. By the way, for everybody watching, this is a short app, and we do have a hard out with these episodes. We're not going to limit the flow of this discussion, so we might not get to some of our questions because we don't want to rush, or maybe the next 3 people's questions will be quick. But just if you're watching, going, is this a short? Absolutely, and we're going to Sensei Gofen's question next on it.
Well, my question, well, before we get to my question, Sean, I want to say, Sensei Legacy will laugh at this. I remember Sensei Legacy and I were once standing in the Talbot Street dojo, and you were fighting somebody in the dojo, Sean, who isn't very well liked. And all of a sudden, Sensei Legacy and I heard, "Boo!" And we looked over, and you were retracting your sidekick, and this guy was flying across the dojo from your sidekick. So I will corroborate that you have a good sidekick. And I will also say I was happy that you kicked that guy across the dojo, because I disliked him more than most people in the dojo, surprisingly.
Yeah.
I'll just say I remember.
My question is about this show, PKCC. My question is, how has it helped you? How do you think it's helped other people? And do you think it will help people in the future? So how has it helped you? How is it helping other people? And will it help anybody in the future? And I'm going to start with you, Robert.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of how it's helped me, I was thinking about this just before we started. One of my favorite benefits of having done this show is just having been a lot closer with the 4 of you through the show. I think it's been really great. I mean, I think we had a good relationship before, but doing the show together, having these messages that fly every week, and especially on Thursday nights, and having to talk about martial arts on a weekly basis, even outside of the dojo, it's been great. That's been one of my favorite things for my own martial arts journey, personally. In terms of how it's helped others, I mean, things are good now, but during COVID, I think it was really something beneficial for a lot of people that helped them see the martial arts community when they were at home and training in their kitchen and things like that. So I think that's been a huge benefit, and I think even now it still does the same, even though some of those things have changed a lot. Obviously, I think it still helps to keep people at least aware of the broader martial arts community. And in terms of help in the future, I mean, there's been a few people that have already passed since we started the show, and I think it'll really help some people to say, oh, this was this instructor who was, maybe my sensei by that point, and I get to actually see a 90-minute interview, uncut with this person, and get to actually, as we talk about all the time, get the story right from the source. And I think that's a thing that, if you go back 100 years, it just didn't exist. So I think that's, in my mind, that's one of the main benefits, that, those recordings and those shows will be around for years to come, hopefully. So I think it'll be a big benefit that, yeah, people will really be happy to have in, 10, 20, 50 years.
Thanks, Robert. Sensei Suino, what do you got on that?
Can you say the things out loud again, just so I have each of the nuances of your question?
I can only say it again because I wrote it down. Otherwise, I would have forgotten to. So how has it helped you personally? Do you see it benefiting others in our community today? And do you think it will be of benefit in the future?
It has helped me personally because I've gotten to know a lot more martial artists, not just by reputation, but by face, name. And it's helped me broaden my view of martial arts in general. I've met a lot of great people and I've learned the way they think. I don't agree with 100% of it, but I agree with a lot of it. And even if I don't agree, I can still learn from it. So yeah, just opened my perspective on martial arts up tremendously. How's it helping today? Same thing for others. Gives people a chance to listen to people really talk. We train a lot on the floor. Maybe if you're teaching at a dojo or seminar, you're talking about that thing you're doing, but very rarely do we get a chance to let martial artists wax philosophically at length and talk about issues and converse with each other. I think it's a great window into the personality of martial arts that a lot of podcasts do for people in general. Not that many do for us, for our world. And it will help in the future. Listen, I believe in moments in time, something we talk about a lot. Back when was that? 1990, 1991, I met Hanshi Legacy in Boston, I think it was. And now here we are, many years later, part of a huge martial arts endeavor. That was a moment in time. We met, things went on from there. PKCC is a moment in time for people. They come on PKCC. We don't know which words they're going to hear, launches them into a new future in martial arts. We don't know which teacher they're going to meet that they go, oh, I'm going to drive out, train with that guy, right? We don't know which teacher we're going to meet where we say, I don't care what it takes. I'm going to get in the same dojo with that guy and train, right? So I think that there are many, many moments of time happening on this show, and we don't even know what the big ones are yet. So yeah, that's my answer.
Thank you. Benz, where do you go with this?
I'm going with Robert's answer out of the gate. The first thing I wrote down was the four of you. I mean, the constant interaction has just been the greatest gift. If we realize that this is a simulation and none of these have ever aired, well, the benefit of this journey with the four of you doesn't change. And, even I know you and Sensei Suino, Sensei Dauphin talk each week, and then that led me to ask if you and I could do the same. So that's like a peripheral benefit of our student-teacher relationship deepening because of just the functioning mechanisms of COVID leading to Zoom, leading to this show, leading to that. So it just keeps doing this every year, every week because of this group of five. So I can't overstate that. I'd be totally disingenuous if I didn't just say in terms of the benefit to me is my status in the martial arts community. People either didn't know I existed or didn't know I belonged at a certain caliber level, however you want to think about it. And this show has given me an entree into that. I don't seek that, but I don't take for granted that that's a real thing, that you inviting me along for this ride, Sensei Dauphin, and opening these doors and thinking about my path and what this show's done with that. Absolute gift. In terms of the others, I just put in massive letters, knowledge. I mean, other people get to literally just pull up and go, hey, in 134 eps, what do masters think? Not what's a little quote, not what does someone else say they think. They can literally go, what did they think about this? And that's insane to me. Like the bank of it is nuts. And that goes to the idea of the future. Like we're all historians on some level here. I mean, someone once asked me if you had like 5 minutes with a Tosu, what would you want to ask them? And I'm like, I'd want to stand on a hill and just watch them teach or do a kata. Like, I don't believe there's one secret technique out there. So I'm not going to ask him anything. I just want to see how he moves and bank as much non-specific information that will then pay back lessons in 10 years when I go, oh, that's why he moved like that. Like Hanshi talked about the undisclosed secrets. So the non-specific sense that we're giving people a way to watch 5 minutes of a Tosu do a kata in 100 years, who knows what they'll get from it, what their version of undisclosed knowledge will be, but there'll be a version of it. And I don't think it's not humble to say we're creating it. Whether they access it or not, who knows, but we are creating it.
Thanks, Benz. Sensei, what do you think?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm just going to start off by saying this. It's going to sound shallow, but today we are the face of martial arts and everyone that we speak to. And we have already had some persons on the show that have passed, and they were icons of martial arts today. Imagine having to spend time with Jigoro Kano, Yamaguchi Sensei, Matsumura Itosu, just talking to them and like Benson says, just watching the way they talk, just because they're all really just human like you and I. But we have this thing in our mind of them being so great, and you'd like to see them, to see what makes them great, even if it's just walking down the street. Wouldn't you like to have seen Matsumura walk up the stairs of City Hall? Just to see what he was like. And just to keep everything quick, the other thing is in your information, hopefully that the people watching, they're going to decide to go to a martial arts school, what to look for, what to avoid, and what martial arts really is, instead of having this movie or book idea of what martial arts is. We can probably help them in some way.
Love it. For me, how it's benefited me is the same as I think people knew me before PKCC. Like a lot of the people we've had on knew me, but they didn't know me the same way they know me now. Now they know me a lot different and a lot better, and I really appreciate that. Obviously, we know martial artists now. I'm really proud that, if I get off a airplane in Sweden, Johan Skillberg and Mike Wall Mike Wall will be on crutches coming to get me right now, but they'll be there like coming to get us. And that, I think, for me personally is great. I think the show has allowed people to think differently in our community. We've become very innovative. So one thing I know for sure is things like World Martial Arts Live. That was spurred, that 24-hour event, global event, was because of PKCC. Hanshi Legacy doing Capital Conquest video feed to Europe. Robert did that. Robert set that up. He organized that. He made that happen. That's because of Punch, Kick, Choke, Chat. And there's so many other events, right? Like World Kabuto did an event with us where we helped them get their members together. So I think it does help the community today. Lots of people have ideas for the show that help them, and we're really good to help them with those ideas. So I think it's helping. And I know we're short on time, but I also want to say I'm really proud of the fact that we've been able to highlight the Japanese Martial Arts Center and Legacy Shorin-ryu on this show. And people have got to know, by the quality of us and what we talk about and the people we have on, I think it's elevated our particular arts, White Crane, Shorin-ryu, Iaido, Judo. I think this show has allowed us to be ambassadors for those things. And I guess, like Sensei Legacy said, like the face of it, we have positioned it for people to see for all time now. It's positioned for all time, for anybody who stumbles upon it or anybody who seeks it out. And Sean, I think now we have 2 minutes, 3 minutes, because Sensei Suino has a hard out at 2:30.
Yes. I think we'll just simply say, what a wonderful format. Like, I know we've kind of done this with host chats, but I don't know, for everybody watching, hit that subscribe, hit that like, and let us know in the comments how much you like this, because this to me feels like one of our regular shorts that could be something where we just pop in for half hour, 40 minutes, round the horn. We won't get to everybody's topic, but next time we can start with me and then go to Robert. I like this a lot, but as my sensei always says, your potential is unlimited, your time isn't. So we have about a minute and a half, and I just want to say, Robert, having you as a part of this episode, it changed the landscape, it changed the feel, all for the better. And I vote for that being more a part of our future too. And I'll leave it to the other senseis to chip in, and we'll let Sensei Dolphin say goodbye today.
I'm good. Rock it out.
Nothing to add. Great show.
I really enjoyed having Robert on here. Don't forget about the different events that we host and sponsor. We got Iaido camps. White Crane camps, youth camps. We do tournaments, big events. And if you're watching this, you only need to reach out to any one of us to find out what those are and how you can be part of them. Also, if you want an event, let us know. Sensei Legacy and Sensei Suino are very available for seminars, and you can contact them direct or contact one of us, and we'll go from there till we see you all again. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Great day.